Hey guys, it's Matt. This video is part of the Reality Gives Itself Away series. It's also to a degree proof of Notnilc, and it is of course Stalled Century. Now when I heard this morning that The Crow was it Brandon Lee, was it the son of Bruce Lee, was remade, the Critical Drinker was talking about the movie The Crow and it being one of the worst movies of all time. Had to kind of dive into this, see if we notice some trends which I think will jump out at you the way they jumped out at me. The list of film remakes is so large that Wikipedia itself had to break it up between A through M and N through Z. And what I've noticed, guys, is there's a distinct change in terms of remakes made, say, early on in the, quote, new century to an old man. If it's a 1945 movie remade in 1989, it kind of makes sense. And it's actually, in many cases, or most cases, an improvement. But this is the century of destruction. It's a reality that gives itself away. And for those that are new, I mean, I need to do more summaries in the beginning. When a reality gives itself away as being fake or not real, or just pendulums only move or only swing in one direction, there's never any wins ever for the good guys, this is the best news of all time to people like us or spiritual beings like us. You don't want the reality to make sense. You don't want the tales of the Big Bang and Stephen Hawking's bullshit to add up. If it does, that's not good news for us. I don't just say this to make myself feel better. The more it breaks down, the better it is for us. Although it is tough day to day to get through. I'm struggling, as well as all you are. Or I'm not re-recording. I'm not re-recording a damn segment. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be blah, 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 blah. Sorry. So let's the trend that I see, reality giving itself away. Thanks, Notnilc. Is the remakes 95, 98, even the early parts of the 2000s, usually a pretty good idea to do the remake. It makes sense. Where the remakes, say, 2005, 2008 through today, are just an absolute destruction of what once was, and most of us would say an intentional destruction. Let's look at the A's to see this trend that just repeats over and over again. In many cases, the remake is a different name. Absent-Minded Professor, 1961, remade as Flubber. I don't know what that is. Adventures in Babysitting, 1987, remade in 2016. So one of the greatest examples of all time is right here. Aladdin, 1992, with Robin Williams, ad-libbing his famous voiceover for the genie. You can't really redo that. You can't. And the Will Smith disaster, 2019. Every live action remake they've made has been an intentional destruction. The movie reviewers just don't understand that. And then people will call first graders who will say it's about making money, Matt. They're desperate to make money. Oh, sure. That Notnilc has no interest in a spiritual battle. It just needs money when it can print $40 trillion a second. So let's look. It was a couple other ones that caught my eye here in the A's. This makes sense. See, when the remake is, say, here in 1994, Angels in the Outfield. And guys, I'm just going to scroll through the text here. If you're long-haul trucking, of course, as usual, don't need to see anything. This makes perfect sense. Angels in the Outfield, 1951. Disney decides to remake it in 1994. Nobody knew about the movie. I had never even knew this movie existed. The remake, I've never seen it, but I hear it, it's in that sweet zone for Disney, a solid, feel-good, strong movie. I'm not going to look at the Rotten Tomatoes much. I don't believe the numbers. Rotten Tomatoes is Notnilc. So nobody knows about Angels in the Outfield in 51. And make it again in 94, improve it, makes perfect sense. See, this is the century where the Notnilc's power wasn't quite what it is today, or at least per their creepy astrology, it wasn't about everything being destroyed. Then, what else caught my eye here in the A's? Okay, here's Arthur, 1981, Dudley Moore. It's a creepy movie to a degree, but it's for anybody over age 50. This movie is like a classic to some people. Had that theme, and it's a little strange, but you don't redo it. You don't redo it with who's that villain? What is his? Oh gosh, it's that It's that jerk that has the supposed conspiracy channel. Oh yeah, he's working for us. I don't even remember his name. Please don't comment. So here's the trend. 2011, destruction. We've noticed the remakes in 2000, say 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6, not necessarily destruction. It's not it's like a turning of the Titanic. It's not like we notice a remake in 2001 is automatically a destruction. It's a turning of the Titanic. It got bad over a 5 or 6 year period. I don't know the real reason for that. Maybe they had to make it look good. Maybe it takes a while for their creepy ass astrology to kick in. You cannot be serious. But there's a reason for it. I mean, once you get into remakes post 2010, it's like a complete destruction. This is a fake reality giving itself away. Or if you don't like those terms, guys, a reality where this thing here that we call Notnilc can control so many aspects. It couldn't do that if this was a real world. Either way, it's the best news of all time. Let it have its sticky fingers in what it wants to. Who cares? Okay, let's look at the B's. And one jumped out at me here. Bad News Bears remake with Billy Bob Thornton, I believe, in 2005. And I know if you're over age 50, you're crying out, you can't remake the classic, the Walter Matthau 1976. But this makes sense to a degree. See, again, it's like the turning of the Titanic is slow. There was some remakes 2001 through 2007 or 8 that were okay, or you could say somewhat appropriate. It didn't just happen on a dime, the destruction. Maybe we'll ponder on the back end why that is. But if you're under age 35, you don't know a darn thing about the Walter Matthau, classic Bad News Bears from 76. So I don't know what to really name it. This hybrid zone of 2001 through 7 or 8 where things were still kind of allowed or the Notnilc wasn't completely in destruction mode, or some decent things that were remakes slipped through the cracks. I don't really know how to talk about it. But what else caught my attention? Oh, of course, 2017 live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast with Emma whatever her name and Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. A complete, of course, just weird destruction of, the classic animation, 91. You just don't mess with it. So again, what reality gives itself away. Let's not forget the theme here. The year of the remake is important. Where these themes line up and continue all the same, say 98% the same, that's not a real world, folks. Or if there's a creepy player here called Notnilc that has to do certain things to satisfy its dark master or its astrology, that's not a real world either. So, I mean, okay, this one makes sense. Bedazzled, 1967. Bedazzled, Brendan Fraser and whatever her name is. This is actually it's based on the Faustian bargain, the deal with the devil, of course, if you've seen it. But when you read about it, it talks about going back to the actual Faustian bargain. And this makes sense because nobody knew the 1967 version, even though this is technically in the new to an old man century. Now, here's one. I mean, I haven't seen the 2016 Ben-Hur, but I hear it was very average. You don't mess with the 1959 Charlton Heston version. And you can't say this is an unnecessary remake to 1925. And, who knows, was this a black and white? This doesn't matter. It's the 1959 Charlton Heston. The year of the remake is important. That's where the whole point of the series here. Reality gives itself away. I'm saying this 2016, it couldn't be good, is what I'm saying. It's almost the rules of this place, and that's a fake reality. We'll see if there are any exceptions that buck the trend and see if we can find out. Or they can do it if they want to do it. Of course they can make a good movie. The first graders cry out, and the movie reviewers cried out that they have no more creativity, the writers, and they're idiots. Of course they can do it. The formulas for a good movie have been known since the mid-30s. And if you don't know what to do, you just repeat those formulas with talented actors that still exist. It's our biggest frustrations, as usual, guys, is the group of people that surround us. No Way Out. Here's just a classic example of what what should be remade, or what I was talking about, where the remakes towards the 70s and 80s and 90s of the last century were necessary remakes, and they're very good. And now it's just, everybody around us can explain how this has all changed. Well, how could it all have changed unless it was intentionally changed? So whatever this big clock is, nobody knows about it unless you're over. Well, you have to be probably over age 75 to really remember that or know about it. But the Kevin Costner is a classic. It's a necessary or a nice reason to do a remake. What else is here that got my attention? The Blob, I don't know. I mean, but I can see, but it's 88 back to 58. It became a cult classic, of course. Actually filmed right up here, 15 or 10 miles away in Phoenixville. Was it Steve McQueen's first movie or something like that, or Paul Newman's? I can see it was horrible special effects. That's one of the reasons it became a cult classic, almost comical. I could see somebody taking another run at it in 88. Probably was pretty bad. Brewster's Millions here. I don't know why the Notnilc is in love with Brewster's Millions. 1914. I've never seen it. I don't know what it's about. This many remakes, 21, 1926, 1935, 45, some in foreign languages in different countries, 54, 61, 85 remake in 88, 97, up through Hello, Mr. Billionaire in 2018. Looks like is that Chinese or Korean? It looks like Korean. The Notnilc's in love with this for some reason. I'm curious the theme as to why the Notnilc would be so interested in so many different remakes. In the letter C, it continues with the theme of if it's made again in the last century, it's a pretty good idea to remake it. But there's two, quote, in that hybrid zone, 2001 to 2010, that we need to talk about, where I'd say that, again, they can't turn the Titanic on a dime. So here, The Birdcage, 1996 with Robin Williams. If you're not over age 45, you're like, what is this La Cage of Follies? La Cage aux Folles, just trust me, I'm in my early 50s. This was to certain groups, this was a big deal. I don't know if it was a Broadway play or everybody heard about this La Cage aux Folles. It was I don't know. I mean, you can understand because it was a big deal, and maybe it was a Broadway play. The remake makes sense. 1996. Okay, this is a classic example of a remake that is far superior to the first one. Cape Fear is a great horror movie. Counselor, is that you, Counselor? That's where the whole bicycle, Madame Blavatsky waiting for me in the light with the bicycle chains and the pipes. It came from Cape Fear. Counselor, could you be there, Counselor? Cape Fear 62 is still a solid movie, but remade. See, if this was remade today, it would be a disaster. Be destroyed. When taking what the 62 movie gave any writer or director or producer, any first grader at the elementary school should be able to do a good job with the remake. Wouldn't make a classic with De Niro, but it shouldn't be ruined. Again, that if it was made today, we know it would be ruined. This is reality giving itself away. No real world operates like this. They cry out the same things in the night. They lost their creativity. No, they didn't. They could hire real spiritual beings to do the creativity if they really wanted it. So what else is here? Charlotte's Web in that hybrid zone. Everybody's heard of Charlotte's Web as a kid if you're in your 40s or 50s, 73. And I'm sure I didn't see the movie 2006, but it's probably pretty good. It's probably pretty clever and cute in that hybrid zone. 2006. I don't know what to name the zone, where things escaped through the cracks that were like allowed to be good. Everyone in the old guard that just came in here after clearing fields knows if this Charlotte's Web said 2016, it would be a destruction because it has to be. No real world could keep doing that. So what else is here? There's another hybrid I saw. Yeah, Clash of the Titans. Okay, 2010. Matt, didn't you say if after 2010 everything has to be destroyed? Well, again, less and less slip through the cracks as you push past 2007. Not quite in the complete destruction phase. I have no other way to talk about it, but turning the Titanic is slow. Clash of the Titans, it takes a while for their creepy spells to kick in or their astrology. There's something to that. I can't really talk about her. I don't want to know more about it. But I bet the old guard's shaking their head like, you understand what I'm saying? There's something to this. So this Clash of the Titans, I mean, this was the horrible. Was it claymation? Stop action. Take a picture of the piece of clay. Move the clay. I mean, you understand why they took another run at it with the most boring actor of all time. I forget. I don't even know the guy's name. Terminator Genesis. I don't know why they keep going with this guy, but it was a decent. It's decent. It's a decent movie. Now here's one when it's something that the Notnilc favors. Here's one of the exceptions to the rule, but also something that gives reality away. When it's something that the Notnilc favors, sometimes it's allowed to be good, like Top Gun Maverick. I'm doing a whole video soon on pretty much the biggest Humpty Dumpty of all time, stuffed Len of all time, is Greek and Roman mythology, how it's carried through everything. The Saturn rocket, the Gemini missions. First, I thought it was Gemini. The first man, the Gemini missions, the Mercury Gemini and Apollo. The old Roman and Greek gods, the Notnilc is in love with. This could be the biggest stuffed Lenin of all time. So carrying those themes through with a pretty decent movie, it's like the Notnilc allowed this. It can make a good movie, of course, whenever it wants. For the D's, we're going to scroll right to the end. I'll go a little bit slow in case somebody wants to just take a quick look at these remakes and the years associated with each. We're about halfway through now. Here is the end part I wanted to look at. Okay, pretty much the last 3 out of 4 I wanted to talk about. This is one of the most surprising things that have not been remade since 1980. This is incredibly surprising to me. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1931, remade in 1941. I'm sure that the 41 movie was a big deal. It made the whole story, world famous, and as we know it today. But this to not be remade, this is I cannot. They're remaking Magnum PI on television. They're remaking everything. The Fall Guy with Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man. They have their sticky fingers in remaking everything, but they've left alone Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Does anybody in the comments have a reason, a Notnilc explainable reason for that? You see what I'm saying? It's not coming out right. But with a remake of, if a dirty tissue falls in a puddle of water, they'll remake it. But in this one, they've left alone. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, Dumbo. Of course, just like every live-action remake, LAR, complete destruction and intentional destruction of the original. A live-action remake coming out in 2019 here, I don't think can be good per the rules of this, quote, new century. Dune, we need to talk about. All right, this is one, they're in love with it, okay? I've talked about this and hinted at this in other videos. The reason the Dune remake and then now Dune 2 is still a solid movie. It's not as good as everybody says it is because they're comparing it to a bunch of trash. So Dune 2 is only incredibly good because there's absolutely nothing else that's any good. But they're in love. Again, a theme that's awfully convenient for you, Matt. Whenever something bucks the trend, you'll just say the Notnilc's in love with the theme, and that explains it. No, I believe that. There's a reason. Why would they be in love with Dune? I don't know how House Atreides and all that weird stuff translates into their Notnilc world. It's a Notnilc life for us. Instead of treated, we get tricked. I don't know why they're in love with Dune, but I've sensed this for a while, and especially when Dune 1 came out and it wasn't destroyed. Like they're in love with this theme for some reason. Whatever. David Lynch is a creepy dude. He just is. I know there's some people listening that really respect David Lynch. I don't think it's possible to be in the heart of Hollywood and be somebody working for us. I'm sorry. I just don't. Always, he gives me the willies, his aura. So there's something about Dune, the Notnilc, or something about spice, or something about the story that's very near and dear to the Notnilc's heart. Therefore, they put their best foot forward and did not allow it to be destroyed, allowed a good movie to go out. I'll try to do E and F a little bit more quickly, guys. There's really nothing in E. Going into F, Father of the Bride, 1950. This again, 1991. Again, in terms of if it makes sense or not, the year has a lot to do with it. If it was made in 1985, 1995 or so, it's usually a very good remake. I'm just saying this trend, I'll just say it one more time, is not normal or natural. Okay, now here's the destruction. Andy Garcia, I didn't even know about this. Maybe it's an HBO Max, it says, movie, Father of the Bride 2022. I don't know anything about it. It can't be good. It's a destruction. 1991, recapturing something from 1950 that really nobody over, under age 75 would even know about, makes perfect sense. Then you have the next version, or the modern remake, is a destruction. So this follows along perfectly. What else is here? That's not The Firm with Tom Cruise. It has something to do with sports. The Fly makes perfect sense. How great could the movie have been in 58? Maybe the budget was lacking, or, and you want to recapture what was, if it was originally a book, or it makes perfect sense. The Fly in 86. Very interesting, good movie. The exact definition of why a remake should be made. Then you get into things like this. Footloose, 2011, in the destruction era. Not quite in the hybrid era, more in the destruction era than the hybrid era. But Footloose wasn't for me. Kevin Bacon, I just wasn't for me. But I'm not sure you remake this unless you're trying to destroy it. Forrest Gump was remade as some 2022. That's a destruction. Some movie for India, Bollywood. Let's see what else is here. Freaky Friday. I don't know why they're in love with Freaky Friday. Maybe an interesting concept in 76. I never heard about this one. Then 1995, they tried to remake it with Shelley Long from Cheers, I guess. Okay, the big one was, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis and the little Parent Trap girl, Lindsay Lohan. But then you don't do it again. I don't know anything about the 2018 movie. You don't do it again unless you're just trying to taint it, trying to destroy in the era of destruction. Okay, I know nothing about it, but it can't be good. Is there anything else here? I guess that's it for F. Just a few things to talk about here in G, guys. Gaslight. This 1944 movie is a pretty good movie with Ingrid Bergman. It really is interesting. This topic that we throw around a lot, gaslighting. You want to really understand what it is. There's a husband just constantly tries to work over Ingrid Bergman to convince her she's crazy. You shouldn't go out tonight, honey. You're recovering. She's not recovering from anything. He just keeps telling her, I'm not going to give it away. It's if you like old movies, you'll love Gaslight. I thought it was very good. But look at this. 1940, Gaslight, a British psychological thriller, and then remade with Ingrid Bergman in 1944. It's almost like the Notnilc, the Notnilc didn't have the same degree of power or influence in the last century for whatever reason. And I think it has gained tremendous power and influence and mind control in the last 20 or 30 years in this quote to an old man, new century. It has tools that it never dreamed of having in the quote last century. It's almost like it saw or didn't realize this movie was coming out, Gaslight, and the Notnilc in a creepy table meeting said, we got to remake this right away for the United States, because this is what we're going to do to the entire population. Like, where'd this come from? Who got our playbook? Notnilc said, this is exactly what we're going to do to those poor devils. Make the movie again with Ingrid Bergman and get big stars, and we'll put it right out, hidden in plain sight, what we're going to do to them. So look at this, a 4-year turnaround by Notnilc to create the Ingrid Bergman one was a bigger, more popular movie. It's almost like the Notnilc got a real hard on when they came across the 1940 British version. Now it says Godfather here. Look, this shouldn't even be here. Godfather 2007 is a Pakistani Urdu film. Should it even be here, Wikipedia? What if a third graders film something in their backyard? Should that be here? Come on. It's a ripoff, a Pakistani ripoff. It shouldn't even be here. My goodness. Most of these are quote legitimate remakes, not Pakistani Uru films, whatever that is. Is there anything else in G? Yeah, I mean, I saw this Goodbye Girl. Okay. Neil Simon is a famous writer and playwright. Did he do Biloxi Blues and some of these other ones? Richard Dreyfuss is a solid actor. I never really heard of this movie. I never saw it. I just came across it in this list. I'm sure it's pretty good. If you get stuck with it and that was the only thing on, it's probably pretty charming, but to remake it, I mean, who comes up with that pitch meeting? Let's remake Neil Simon's Goodbye Girl. But it's in that hybrid period, 2004, where the Notnilc, it was almost like it was learning to destroy in 2002 through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like a child. It was learning to destroy. Now it has its destruction formula is complete, like when the Death Star was finished. Could be. That hybrid period could be that means that's just more evidence that the Notnilc is like a weird sentience or an AI or something that's like the Strangers that tries to understand us. There wasn't too much to talk about for the letter H, so I skipped it. We're on the letter I. First thing that got my attention was The Incredible Journey, 1963. 2 dogs and a cat try to make their way home, or I've never seen it, but we've all heard about this movie. Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey, 1993. So 30 years later, again, per the timing of it, this makes perfect sense. The filming quality might not have been great in 63. Animal training might be better in 93. They have some special effects at their disposal. This makes perfect sense. Again, then the timing of it almost dictates it makes perfect sense. If it was 2013, it would be a destruction. It's almost like the Notnilc doesn't really know how to destroy without giving away that it's trying to destroy, and only a small segment of the population, you and me, can see the intentional destruction. Everybody else in the ship of fools just kind of goes along with it and says, just blames the writers and says the same things over and over again. It's like they had to wait till everybody on the ship of fools was so brainwashed, then the Notnilc stood up one day with George Soros in the form of a monkey and said, we can just make it bad on purpose and just make it blatant, and nobody will notice because they're all in the ship except this little group trying to row away, but we don't care about those boys and girls that cried wolf. It's weird, folks. Here's one that just makes perfect sense, though, and it just seems like a real reason for a remake. Okay, The Departed, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson, 2006. Internal Affairs, a Hong Kong action thriller. This one makes sense. This undercover movie, and it's Hong Kong, and it's in Mandarin, and somebody said, let's just rip this off or give them a stipend and make it in the United States. And it's still in that hybrid period, 2006, where it wasn't a rule of this reality where things have to intentionally be destroyed unless the Notnilc is completely in love with the topic. We've now crossed over. Everything will be destroyed now unless the Notnilc is in love with the topic. And I'm not just giving that little asterisk or proviso to get myself out of a sticky situation where one doesn't hold up. If there is a good movie today, I think I can make a good case as to why I think the Notnilc allowed it to be good and why the Notnilc is in love with the subject matter. I don't think there'll be one that breaks that rule. This is the era of destruction. So what else is here? Anything? Not really. Let's go on to J because there's not much here. The Jazz Singer. I don't know why there'd be three different versions of the Jazz Singer. Really? The Big Operator, the Toy. Okay, well, again, the timing makes perfect sense. Nobody knows Les Gilets. This is probably a French. Yeah, I mean, fine. You put Richard Pryor in there, steal the theme. Makes perfect sense. The Jungle Book, live action remake. An intentional destruction of a classic. We can just pick them out, can't we? When the Notnilc is blatantly and obviously trying to destroy. With the letter L, the most obvious trend, an easy-to-see trend, continues. There hasn't been one remake of what would be considered to be a classic, post-2012, say, that's not an absolute destruction, takedown, in my opinion, an intentional destruction. When it happens 5 times in a row, guys, I mean, I don't know. I don't have to argue to you. You see the world the way I do. And if I'm talking to, say, my family, they would never see the world the way we do, no matter how much evidence there is. So, but I was going to say, when it happens 4 times in a row or 5 times in a row, oh, it's just a coincidence. They got the wrong writers, Matt. Oh yeah, Disney has no access to creative talent. They wouldn't know where to go get creative talent. When it happens, say 25 or 30 times in a row, how do you still put forth that it's a coincidence or the same excuses? Bad writers, or they didn't understand what the audience wanted when they could do a focus group and just bring in a 6-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon and a pizza. I don't understand that. That's our biggest frustration with the people around us. When it happens so many times in a row and still they act like the palace guard, they make excuses for it. And our way of seeing it, when it happens 1,000 times in a row, our way of seeing it is always a little crazy. So, but here's the main theme continues. Lady and the Tramp, 1955. Obviously a classic. I don't know anything about the live action remake other than every single one is an intentional destruction and absolute trash. So didn't see it and not going to see it. And I'm sure it was horrible. What else is here in the L's? All right, I saw a few of these live action. Lion King. I mean, you make that animated movie in 94, which they, as we've talked about, probably they ripped off from ancient African legend and lore. They ripped it off from somewhere, but just leave it. It's good. Okay, it is good. Mufasa, just leave it alone. Leave it alone. Of course, they didn't try to put their best foot forward here. It's an intentional destruction. I know you guys that just came in from clearing fields, you know this, but I'm talking to the 1 or 2 people that may stumble upon this video. The Little Mermaid. You leave little Ariel from 89 alone. Don't swap out her race and all this stuff and make a live action remake out of it. Just leave it alone. Come on. Intentional destruction of the classics is a repeating theme. Oh, Longest Yard. Now this makes sense. Okay, someone could say, hey, they wanted to make some money or capitalize, make some profits. It's not all Notnilc planning at the creepy table. I'll give you that. Sometimes it's just, Matt, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. I hear you. Longest Yard. Makes sense. Nobody under age 40 knows about the damn Burt Reynolds movie. And, let's just rip it off and try to make some money with Adam Sandler and Chris Rock and whatever. There's no Notnilc plot here. It just makes sense. Not very good, but at least what they're trying to do makes sense. Most of this doesn't make any sense. That's why we are so fascinated by it. Moving on with the M's, I'm going to switch programs, move away from that record on the fly program. This will turn into a 3-hour video. Just look at specific examples that are worth talking about as we go through the remainder of the letters. And I'm not going to cherry pick examples, but I'm going to prove it to you right now. This one hurts my theories. I can't figure out why the Notnilc would allow a good movie in 2016 in this regard. I'll look to your comments if anybody has any thoughts. The Magnificent Seven, of course, with Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner, an absolute classic. Of course, a ripoff of The Seven Samurai 1954, which is supposed to be one of the greatest movies ever made. But, hey, we'll take that. Japanese movie, they probably didn't pay them or give them any royalties, just probably completely ripped it off and put it in the genre of the Old West, and it became an absolute classic. Magnificent Seven is a wonderful movie. Now, the Denzel Washington in 2016, guess what? It's pretty good. I mean, you can't possibly rival the 1960, just impossible. But it's pretty darn good. How's that, Matt? Not trying to destroy, allowing a good remake in 2016. How did this one slip through the cracks? I don't know. I mean, if I was taking a podium and I was just desperate to come up with something, I would say this theme also potentially, the seven of some kind, it may be important to the Notnilc. I don't know. That's a desperate attempt at an explanation, but this is the first one that really goes against this entire trend that we're looking at. The first one we've seen where the remake post 2012 or 2010 is a rock solid movie. I didn't say it's as good, but very worth watching, very worth going to the movies for and spending whatever. So this one, but that doesn't mean because a few exceptions are going to pop up doesn't mean the whole theory has no merit. Well, there's exceptions to anything. I just want to make sure I point them out. I'm not trying to hide from them. Another in the M's, Miracle on 34th Street. This supports my conclusions or how I see this playing out. Now, you don't ever mess with the 1947 classic Miracle on 34th Street. It's one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. I watch that every Christmas, and I have to see the George C. Scott Christmas Carol. Those are the two. I basically watch nothing else. Now, 1973 was a made-for-TV movie, just some trash, just throw it out. 1994, the colorized version, of course it's going to be color in 1994. It's a nice little movie. I've seen little bits and pieces of it. It doesn't interest me compared to the movie that I'm in love with in 1947. But they're trying. See, it wasn't a good idea to go there. But they might have thought, so even however how great is the 1947 movie, it's so old and black and white and dated. I probably only love it because I grew up as I'm in my early 50s. My grandparents watched it and showed it to me over and over again in the mid to late 70s. So I have that affinity to it, which someone that's aged 25 or younger, they want a modern version. So I understand this. And they didn't try, the point is they didn't try to destroy it. They tried to do the best that they could. 1994, that's what they did. They tried. If it was 2014, then it would have been an intentional destruction. You know how weird that sounds to anybody stumbling upon this that was looking for cat videos. Mulan 1998 animation classic, Mulan 2020 live action remake. Matt, is this another one? Another intentional destruction of what was once a classic via a live action trash new century Disney remake. Yep, Mulan. The Mummy. This is an interesting one to look at. The Mummy 1932, The Mummy 1959. Made it a bigger movie. Growing up as a kid in the 70s, you knew the Dracula and the Frankenstein, all the old movies, the werewolf and the mummy. So the 59 was probably a pretty big movie. Makes sense. 32, would have been black and white, would have looked horrible. That makes sense. Remake in 59, The Mummy. Okay. How many times has Dracula been remade? The Mummy 1999, I'm actually going to say this, Brendan Fraser, makes sense. There was a little window where he was decent. A tiny little window where he was okay. This makes sense because The Mummy 1959, very dated. Nobody under age 30 is going to give a shit. And so this is my area here. I watched Brendan Fraser. I never thought he was cool. No, he ain't cool. He had a tiny little window of a few weeks where he was okay. The Mummy 2017, Tom Cruise. Uh-oh. Intentional destruction. I turned it off after 45 minutes. It was horrible. I wouldn't call it Tom Cruise's intentional humiliation, but it was close. In the middle there, The Nutty Professor, 1963, was Jerry Lewis. Of course, Eddie Murphy, The Nutty Professor, 1996. Makes perfect sense. Per the timing of it again, we see with 1960 remade, say 1990, 1985. These remakes make sense. When it happened post 2010, either it doesn't make sense or it's absolutely horrible, which many of us see as an intentional destruction. For anybody that doesn't see the world the way we do, how many times can this happen over and over again before you stand up and say something strange is going on? We notice trends that happen over and over and over again. We step forward and put our hands up and say something very strange is going on, and we're ridiculed for it. What if it happens 1,000 more times in a row? What we're saying has no merit? Remake 1996 makes perfect sense. This is my era, made for somebody like me at my age. I don't have a damn clue about a Jerry Lewis movie. I didn't have a damn clue about what he tried to do with the Nutty Professor in the 60s, and I didn't care. Eddie Murphy, though, I can relate to him. It's my generation, and I didn't go out and spend the money and go watch the Clumps or whatever, but I can understand why they brought it back to the theater. The original Ocean's 11 movie, 1960, The Rat Pack, which is Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr. Okay, George Clooney and Brad Pitt's Ocean's 11, 2001 made perfect sense. Well, Matt, it's in the new century. Like I said, the Titanic doesn't just turn on a dime. This is much more related. It might be the old century. Was it made before September? You know what? Their calendar is not our calendar. And the Titanic doesn't turn on a dime. Ocean's 11, even 12, 13 are excellent movies. This makes sense. I had no affinity to no Rat Pack. That's old man stuff to somebody my age when I was in my 30s or so and this was coming out. I didn't want to go watch no Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. trying to rob something. That's old man stuff. Makes perfect sense. But there you go. Ocean's 8, 2018. This is the female version. It wasn't a disaster like what they did with Ghostbusters. That was a disaster. The movie is okay. It's not horrible. But maybe they made a little bit better movie because that's not what the Notnilc was all about here. This was right the beginning of the era of everything is race swapped. Everything is gender swapped. What was once a man is a woman. What was once a woman is a man. What was once what was once a black famous person is now played by a white person. But that never happens. It only goes one direction. You're not going to see a famous white actor play the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. That's not going to happen unless it really wants to piss people off, which it's capable of that. But anyway, this was the era of trying to piss people off with the gender swapping. And okay, that's what it was all about here. The movie itself wasn't atrocious, but it's still a ruination in its own way, or in this case, just trying to get under people's skin and suck the energy, suck the loosh. Dropping down to the bottom, 101 Dalmatians. Again, another animated classic, 1961. Then we have the 1996 live-action remake with Glenn Close. Who names a female kid Glenn? Maybe they didn't know it was a girl till 10 or 12 years. Should we change the name back to what? Leave it at Glenn. This was their first attempt, I think, at ruination via live-action remake. So they weren't really good at complete destruction and ruination and destruction of the Death Star. It's probably watchable. It's okay. I mean, I've never seen it, but it's not like as horrible as the new Peter Pan and some of that. They didn't, per their live-action remakes, they were just starting off here and learning how to ruin and destroy. And the Notnilc's grown very good at it. In the P's here, there's two to talk about in this particular screenshot up top. Papon, the worst prison of all time. Was it Dustin Hoffman is stuck in there with, is it Steve McQueen, I think, not Paul Newman? I confuse those two. I don't ever confuse Robert Redford, but those other two I confuse. It's like one could be substituted for the other. I don't know why. It's just me. Why you make a Papon 2017? I don't know anything about the 2017 version, guys. Because the trend is clearly the trend, I'm going to assume it's out to ruin it. It's out to attach to the 1973 classic and ruin it, the way the latest three Star Wars from Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are meant to attach to the 1977 and the 1980 and then 1983 and ruin it. I can only assume it's going to follow the same trend, although I know nothing about it. And one last note on Papon before we move to the Parent Trap at the bottom. This is really, talk about Notnilc free zone. This really gives away my mental state of affairs. Now, the first hour of Papon, it is a brutal place. I mean, it's not a place anybody would ever want to go. But then the last 20 minutes or so, they've moved them to, or at least some of the prisoners that have been there for decades, they moved them out to this rock island, an island that's like a rock in the middle of an ocean somewhere. And Dustin Hoffman has a little hut with a pig and a chicken, and it sounds like an incredibly great place. I would go there. I would like to go there now. I mean, Matt, you're saying where they're depicted as the worst prison of all time, the last 20 minutes of Papon is superior to your life now, and you'd want to... absolutely. A hut on like a rock island it looks like a Notnilc free zone to me, with a pig and a chicken. You could grow, I guess there's one guard with a right. I don't know. You can't get off, right? Well, I guess Steve McQueen tries, jumps on the wall. But you can then you can go see your friends like Steve McQueen, who's in the hut like a few 100 yards away, and it no bombardment of electromagnetic frequency. It doesn't get any better. When I'm watching the last 20 minutes of Papon, I'm going, what prison? This is paradise. I'm not joking in any way. Okay, the Parent Trap. This makes sense. Again, look at the timing of it. 1961 remake with Lindsay Lohan, 1998. Makes perfect sense. It's improved upon. The original Parent Trap, It's a cute, it's a cute little movie, but it looks dated. It's rough. It's clever. It's good. The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan is a phenomenally good movie. I'm not Matt. You admitting that? Yeah, I'm admitting it. It's one of these movies like Shawshank. Every time I go by and it's on, I'll watch at least 20, 30 minutes of it. I'll watch some of it. For 12 years, I thought they were twins. I didn't know it was Lindsay Lohan doing two roles. Anyway, this makes perfect sense. It's dusting it off, making it better. The timing of it dictates that the world was allowed to do that. I doubt they'll ever go Parent Trap, 2024 or 2025 or 2026. Notnilc, if you're listening to me in real time, you want to give yourself away to just absolutely everybody, and you bring out Parent Trap 2025 and just it's horrible compared to then. I mean, everybody, even the dumbest of the dumb, might wake up to your tactics, tricks, and ruse. You can't make the Lindsay Lohan movie any better. It literally can't be done. Matt, you in love with? I'm not too big to say it. It's a damn good movie. Did you cry in it? Maybe. Oh no! Look up top. Peter Pan Classic, 1953. Peter Pan and Wendy, 2023. Wendy, Wendy, what went wrong? Oh, God. This is one of the worst live-action remakes of all time. Made Peter Pan into this little they-them type, and the girl boss, just meant to piss people off. It's all it was trying to do. Matt certainly was trying to make... You just stumbled upon this channel. It's always trying to make money. No, it's not. It's not trying to, I should have said that in the first 10 seconds of this video. It's trying to destroy. Doesn't need money. Never needs money. You new here? Peter Pan and Wendy. Just even adding the name. They got to get the girl boss in there. Meant to just piss everybody off. Some Karen type stumbling upon this video. Well, Matt, it's good for girls to be empowered. Oh, so you believe all that bullshit? All this girl empowerment stuff? You know why girls need to be empowered? Because the Notnilc, through all its media, keeps telling girls they're not the same. But they keep, through all the girl empowerment stuff, the psychological message to the subconscious is, you need help. You're not the same. It's first grade reverse psychology. If everybody would just talk and just stop saying any of this stuff and treat everybody the same, then everybody would be the same. Keep saying, it's good for little girls to see role models. That's telling the little girls they need help. Doesn't anybody understand the first grade tactics of Notnilc psychology? They do it with blacks and African Americans too. Sorry. At the bottom, the Phantom of the Opera. I had no idea there were this many versions of the movie. I've mentioned many times, I'm in love with the, quote, Broadway play, the Andrew Lloyd Webber music, the music of the night. I still need to make that video. The 25th anniversary performance of Phantom of the Opera with the Andrew Lloyd Webber music from Royal Albert Hall. I bought it a few years ago from Amazon. It's still one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I've watched the Music of the Night song presented by the Phantom, 100 times, trying to get to the bottom of the Notnilc message. Very, very hardcore Notnilc's, quote, spiritual, telling us about our spiritual selves and the Notnilc's role it plays here. I went away from it for a year. I haven't watched it, but I'm going to go back to it. I'm finally going to make that video and show clips of it on Free Voice. So the point, guys, is the Phantom of the Opera, I know the Notnilc's in love with it. For various reasons. Then Andrew Lloyd Webber, in my opinion, to say he created all those songs himself without hardcore Notnilc help is ridiculous to me. It's the same as saying Elon Musk is really managing all those companies. And Andrew Lloyd Webber, Jesus Christ Superstar. I mean, that's not real good. I mean, okay, I'm sure that the man is very talented, but there's no doubt Andrew Lloyd Webber got some Notnilc help. He's a creepy dude. Anyway, so I'm gonna go back and watch all these movies. The Notnilc's in love with the Phantom of the Opera, and no, they won't ever destroy it. The movie that was they made the movie of the play with the songs, and it was okay. It wasn't Sarah Brightman, but it was decent. It wasn't an attempt at destruction. They will never. Notnilc, if you're listening, I know you will never destroy things like this that you're in love with. You'll never intentionally destroy Phantom of the Opera. You'll never intentionally destroy Dune. Guys, I'm sorry we only made it partially into the P's, but I'm going to close with this image. This would be quite funny if a family member was listening or anybody stumbled upon this. 2012, October 30th specifically, was the day that George Lucas signed everything over to Disney. And you know those images of him sitting at that table with Bob Iger? He really looks like a happy person, doesn't it? Getting his billions. It looks like he was vanilla iced. That's a verb. I guess the original verb we used was he was shug knighted. He wasn't vanilla iced. It's, however, if you want to interpret the verb from the victim or the perp's perspective, I prefer actually he was shug knighted. Doesn't look very happy signing everything over to Disney, does he? Look at the pictures. Okay, 2012, this is significant. This is when the real destruction era started. Matt, could you think there's a relationship between that and the whole 2012 thing and this is when all the fake mall events in school? Absolutely. This is when reality really started to break down. Like on the big day, 2001, you know, that big day in September, reality stood up and said, okay, we've done it. We've moved reality off to the side. Well, when does everything kick in? Well, we have to wait a little while. We've moved reality off to the side. All the dark spells and the knuckle bones worked, but it really will kick in 2012. What we did in 2001, then it'll come to fruition, whatever that means, in 2012. There's no doubt in my mind this date is significant. It's not random. Even October 30th, a date before Halloween. What does that mean, man? I don't know. I'll try to pay attention next Eyes Wide Shut party I go to. I have no idea. I'm just telling you, it's all significant. They're so creepy. And we don't let them have their creepy ways, and we don't need any of it. That's the beauty of it. That's the greatest news of all time. Why do they need all this creepy stuff? We don't need any of it. That is the best news of all time. Okay, the date's significant. The year is significant. 4.5 billion, but the fact that makes 9 is probably significant. Why I don't know, and I don't care. You know, the old guard knows this is just how they do business. The point of me, closing with this image related to everything talked about here in this video was this was the era when the real destruction on purpose was intentionally or allowed to take place. Oh, Disney can now take over, and the destruction can begin. And not just of Star Wars, of legacy Disney IPs. I really sound like I know what I'm talking about when I say that. Intellectual property. Now they're even going to try to destroy it. It seems like they're going to do it to Snow White. This is unfathomable. Snow White, the 1938-1939 animation, literally put Disney on the map. It would not exist today in 1/10 of what it is without Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and how big, worldwide big that animation was. It fed Disney for 20 years. It put everything on the map. And now it looks like through these villains, the actresses and actors that are just complete villains, they're going to actually, guys, we already know this is taking place. But if the new Snow White sucks rocks, and it looks like it's going to, how could anybody, how can anybody around us argue with our point of view? But of course, they'll never see our point of view. In 2025, or whenever they're going to put Snow White out there, they could literally show the audience anything, and most of the people around us would find a way to defend it or make excuses for it. They replace the 7 dwarfs with 7 Chuckies, little Chuckies, or whatever. The last year's winner of RuPaul's Drag Race is Snow White, or they're going to change the name. Matt, it's 2025. Certainly we can't. You didn't think we would use the name Snow White. It's just called snow. And even the color of snow itself is racist. We're going to work with Bill and Melvin and Bezos to try to change the clouds with chemicals. Some of those flakes need to be black. A hill that's all white, Matt, sends after a snow sends the wrong message to kids. Almost nothing would surprise us, and the people around us just defend it, and they stick up for it, and they're truly the brainwashed palace guard. Thanks for listening.